loves, it's Carrie. If we haven't met before, I'm a tarot reader and teacher, and I am doing a full moon reading for today, which is February 9th, and it's a full moon in Leo. And so that's what we know about Leos is that they're really good in the spotlight. They're very comfortable standing in their own power. They tend to kind of hold a certain demand, not a demand for attention, but they kind of naturally just draw people towards them. So I think this month, after this kind of heavy energy we've been moving through and like really grinding through our days, I think it'll be a month of a little bit more levity. What I'm going to look at this time, I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I'm going to look at the energy around each of the 4 weeks that are coming up. So between this full moon and the next full moon, just what's kind of hanging around those weeks and what we might need to know about that. So the first week, I guess this will run Sunday to Sunday roughly. So this will be this week coming up, starting probably tomorrow, February 10th. Eight of Wands. So things will definitely, momentum will kick off. Wands are fire energy, and they embody our creativity, our passions, our will, our ego. And the Eight of Wands in particular is a very fast-moving card. It's kind of like if you've ever like lit a small fire and all of a sudden the wind picks up and it just takes off. So it'll be very much anything we've been really putting our creative selves into will just suddenly take off, and sometimes we're not ready for it. So it can be surprising, but it's in general a pretty positive card. And if there was a feeling of a stall somewhere in the project or in something you're putting a lot of your energy into, the Eight of Wands tells us that this will start to it'll just really start to move forward, and it'll take a lot less energy from you. It'll just kind of happen naturally. So I guess for that week we would just say to be ready for things to finally take off. And I think that's all I have to say about that for now. But I'm going to try and keep this shorter this time so I don't put you guys to sleep. Then the second week between this full moon and the week after, I should have had a calendar in front of me so I could see what weeks we're actually looking at, but week 2 between these two moons, we've got the Eight of Cups, so 2 8s in a row. That's pretty significant out of 4 cards. So 8s are in general about movement, with the exception of 1, but the Eight of Cups is about moving away from something we've invested a lot of emotional energy into. So where the Eight of Wands is about creative projects really taking off, the Eight of Cups is a different energy. It is movement, and but it's more moving away from something. So sometimes it can be a relationship or something you've put a lot of love and a lot of heart into. But I often find with the Eight of Cups, sometimes it's more about the way we thought that was going to look. So rather than necessarily leaving a relationship that's not working, it's a departure from what our heart wanted it to look like, or what, just as an example, if you're in a committed, loving relationship and you're happy, but it's not that kind of it's not the kind of romance you'd read about in books. It's sort of about looking at it for what it does have, and moving away from that more watery, emotional kind of longing feeling, and more into what it is you actually have. So it's kind of, I quite like it. It can be a bit of a melancholy feeling as you leave something behind, but it's to get to something better and something a lot more real, and something with a little bit more stability, and something a little bit less based on emotions and more based on earthy, grounded energy. So essentially moving away from things that don't work in week 2. So week 3, Prince of Wands. So the princes are interesting. They are knights in some of the other tarot decks, and they are kind of how we move through the world. The knights are very action-oriented, and then especially this knight having Wands fiery energy behind him. It's going to be another week of very rapid movement and call to action kind of feeling, and being really fired up. The princes, all the court cards are sort of the evolved versions of their suit, so the princes have a fair bit of experience behind them. So they know what they're doing. They still have a little ways to go to really get more life experience. So the one caution with the Prince of Wands is sometimes um, he can rush into things like very hot-headed and very feeling very strongly about what it can be like a social political activism, that kind of thing, and he can really rush into it, and sometimes that is at the he sacrifices, and I only say he because it's a masculine active energy. This individual sometimes is so passionate that they have blind spots. So I guess where the Eight of Wands in the first week will be things taking off the way they're meant to, the Prince of Wands is very action oriented, but this might be asking us to look at the action we're taking and whether it is based on us just really wanting something to change, just making sure we're going about it the right way, I guess. It's a very creative energy, and it's one that really lights us up. With the Prince of Wands, I do think about things that are really dear to my heart, even though it's not, Wands aren't so much about emotion, but they are about that thing that lights that spark inside of you. So I know in my case, I've certainly run my mouth off about things without potentially thinking about other people's perspectives and leaving room to learn about something. So sometimes when we care so much about something, we run in and try to save things without maybe growing in areas that we could if we took a pause. So I would say week 3 will be a good mix of feeling inspired and feeling really called to action, but also learning to sit with that a little bit and just take a brief pause and decide whether that action is going to be the best in that case. So not sure if that's the best description, but essentially just a good balance between taking action but also pausing before that action, if that makes sense. All right, the 4th week, and then we'll kind of look at what we've got and what we don't have. 4th week is, the Lovers. Very nice. So the Lovers is a major arcana card, and they tend to be the ones that are change the way we see the world. They have sort of more of a lasting impression on us. And the Lovers is also the number 6, which is a number of smoothness, flow, unity. So it can quite potentially have to do with relationship or a new relationship. It could be a new partnership that's just very harmonious. It can be a really dear friendship that for whatever reason in that week is highlighted, or that you get to really dive into and spend time with that person. But often I don't like to always look at it as being an external person who factors into this. I also think the Lovers comes up when we've been divided in one way, when maybe two parts of ourselves have been dissonant. If you're someone who wears a lot of hats, and you're at points in your day you're an employer or an employee, you're a sister or brother, you're a daughter or a mother, we have all these different roles we play, and quite often we have to switch gears so quickly that we can, without realizing it, feel friction between two parts of ourselves. So I love to think of the Lovers as this kind of melding and a more individuation of ourselves, where we become more actualized and where we become more of a whole person, and two parts of ourselves kind of unify. In the Temperance card, we see that alchemy of two things that are fine on their own coming together to become something even better and stronger. So I see that with the Lovers. Not to say it couldn't be an external person or a friend or partner, but I also think there's great potential for that to happen inside of us as well. And so don't discount that. We see a deer in the card, and also the male in the card has antlers on, so that also has to do with tuning into our higher power, or our higher listening, and receiving more messages from spirit and the universe, and just feeling really tuned in. So it's a beautiful 4th week to sort of end off, because it looks like there'll be, a mix of fiery energy, and then that kind of 2nd week, a bit of perhaps melancholy or nostalgia as we move away from one thing to find something better. I guess I would say, because fire can be very, if you're not used to it, if you're not, as a general rule, a very fired up person, activated energy in that area of your life, it can tend to you can feel burnt out if you don't balance it with grounding. So as much as that can be exciting, it is still gets your adrenaline going and stuff. So I guess I would just say to make sure you're taking little breaks and bringing yourself back into your body. We didn't see any pentacles here, and they tend to have to do with bringing yourself back down into our body, kind of digesting things, and so stretching, walking out in nature, drinking spicy tea, whatever it is that kind of brings you back into your body. Yoga is another great one. If you're brave enough to sing, which I'm working on, getting that throaty kind of sounds out of your body can actually be incredibly grounding when you're feeling a little bit like there's been a bit too much action in your life. But overall, it looks like a really productive month with change, but nothing sudden, and ending on such a beautiful note with the Lover's card. I think it's going to be a really wonderful moon cycle. I believe Mercury goes retrograde around the middle of the month, so that can tend to challenge communications and that kind of thing, which might be why we see the Eight of Cups in the second week. But overall, just take care of yourself. It's kind of neat because this month seems to switch gears, like back and forth between action and respite and that kind of thing. So it might be interesting to see how well you're able to kind of just ride it and just observe the way that you change gears between those two different things, because we can learn a lot about ourselves. So I hope that helps you. I think that's all I had to say. Thank you so much. If you're getting this, it means you've subscribed to my newsletter, so thank you so much for that. It's a nice little family coming together, so I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions about this reading or tarot in general, please feel free to email me. It's just apothecarytarot@gmail.com. I'm always happy to talk tarot. And have a wonderful month, and I think that's it. Lots of love. Bye.